Have you ever sat in a meeting defending a number you knew was wrong? Not wrong because you made a mistake, but wrong because the data was always going to be incomplete. And someone in the room expected precision that you couldn't actually deliver? I've definitely been in those meetings too, and they're stressful. But the stress that people feel isn't really about the numbers. It's about a way of thinking about analytics that was never going to work. And a label I've started using for it is thinking like a data accountant. Today, I'm going to walk you through this data accountancy problem, understanding what it's costing you, and showing you what the alternative could be and how it works in the real world. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Dana D. Tomaso, and I help marketers and communicators just like you solve real analytics problems that you encounter every day. If that sounds like something you need in your life, please make sure to subscribe. So let's start by asking, what do I mean when I say the word data accountant? A data accountant is an analyst or marketer who has been trained to treat analytics as a reconciliation exercise. Every session must be accounted for, every click has to match up, every conversion number must be exact. And what happens is the job becomes defending the numbers rather than understanding what the numbers actually mean. Now, reconciliation is a legitimate practice in financial accounting, where the numbers really do need to match. But web analytics is not your general ledger. It never was, and applying that accounting mindset to analytics data is where a huge amount of unnecessary stress can come from. So let's talk about how we landed here, because this didn't come suddenly out of nowhere. What happened was that when analytics tools first got widely adopted, the data felt clean. Reports matched up, numbers reconciled, the illusion of completeness was easy to hold on to because the gaps just weren't visible yet. But what we didn't fully appreciate at the time was that the data wasn't actually complete. It just used to be less obviously incomplete. Now that illusion is totally gone. Between ad blockers, cookie consent, browser privacy protections, and the reality that people move between devices constantly, you could be doing everything technically right and still be missing a meaningful chunk of what's actually happening. And that isn't a configuration problem you can solve. That is the current state of analytics, and it's not going to go back to the way it was. And yet that expectation of precision, that ended up staying. Organizations still evaluate analysts based on whether or not the numbers reconcile. Clients still want to know why the GA4 sessions don't match the Google Ads clicks. Stakeholders still expect reports that account for every single row. And that expectation of precision became the law before the technical reality made it impossible to meet. And so what you can end up in as a result is a really painful loop of this tool will fix it, this configuration change will fix it, this attribution model will fix it, and then one day magically all the numbers will line up, except they won't. And even if they did, would that really change a single decision that you'd make? And that's how the data accountant mindset is not only stressful, but expensive. So here's what it's really costing you. First off, the goal is impossible. You will never have complete data. That means the data accountant is set up for failure regardless of how hard they work or how skilled they are. Secondly, and this is the one I want you to really think about, even if you could get more precision, it usually wouldn't change the recommendation. Think about your last few reports. Would knowing you had exactly 12,476 sessions versus approximately 12,000 have changed the decision? In a lot of cases, no. And of course, there are contexts where precision matters. A/B testing, CRO work, that can hinge on small differences, and I'm not dismissing that. But most day-to-day analytics reporting is not CRO work. And third, a reader named Kira Rodriguez put this better than I possibly could when she wrote to me after I sent an early version of my thoughts around data accountancy via my newsletter. She described the data accountant experience, the stress, the impossibility, the realization that being extra precise didn't actually meaningfully change their decisions. And she noticed something really important when she started framing analytics differently in her job interviews. It made analytics feel like scary and overwhelming to the people she was talking with. And really, isn't that what we want to have happen when it comes to analytics? I know that's one of my personal goals. Now that we know why being a data accountant is unpleasant, what does the alternative actually look like? What I would really like is for us to shift from counting to reasoning. The data accountant version is we had 4,312 sessions this month, which is down from 4,587 sessions last month. Conversion rate was 2.34%. Now, here's the reasoning version, same data. Organic traffic is down about 6% month over month. That's consistent with what we're seeing from increased AI presence in Google search, and it's to be expected. Our conversion rate had a slight increase because traffic dropped while conversions held steady, which tells us the traffic we're actually getting is still qualified. In the reasoning version, I'm not defending a number, but I'm making sense of a pattern. The person on the other side of that report doesn't need to worry about whether or not that 4,312 number is right. They just need to know what it means. Now, that doesn't mean we get to be relaxed when it comes to our analytical discipline, though, because reasoning from imperfect data requires more analytics discipline, not less. What we're doing is we're understanding what the data is actually telling us, accounting for context, distinguishing signal from noise, and communicating that clearly to people who are not in the data every day. And that's harder work than reconciling rows, but it's really what we should be doing. Now, how can you bring the people around you over to this mindset change? It's hard because they were also trained to expect precision. They didn't make that up on their own. They absorbed it from the same industry culture that you and I did. So when you show up with a different framing, you're not just changing how you report, you're asking them to update a mental model they've held onto for years. The approach that I found works is to lead with confidence rather than an apology. Think about how it feels right here when you say, sorry, the data isn't perfect, versus, here's what the data is telling us, and here's why this is the right way to read it. The first invites doubt, both in the data and your abilities, and the other builds trust. So when you can explain clearly and calmly why complete data isn't available, and then immediately redirect to what you can know with confidence, you come across as more credible, not less credible. And this won't be a switch you flip overnight, and it's definitely not a single conversation that changes everything. You can get there one meeting, one report, one conversation at a time. Now, before I wrap up here, let's repeat after ourselves. We are not data accountants. I want you to hold on to that, not as a disclaimer, but rather a commitment. A commitment to doing the harder, more valuable work of reasoning from imperfect data instead of pretending the data is complete. A commitment to being honest about what the numbers can and can't tell you. And a commitment to building the kind of trust that comes from useful analysis rather than precise-looking reports. Measurement is not getting easier. Privacy legislation is tightening, tracking is becoming more limited, and that gap between the data we have and the data that we theoretically like to have is not getting smaller. The time to build this practice is now. Have you had these conversations with clients or stakeholders? How did it go? Let me know in the comments. I'm really curious as to what you're running into out there. And if you found this useful, please like and subscribe. It helps me reach more people who are also struggling with marketing analytics. Thank you so much for watching.